This famous Chinese mukbang streamer traveled to Japan and ended up completely angering local Japanese people. From taking all the food for himself and leaving nothing for other customers, to shouting and yelling in the restaurant and causing a commotion, to using blatantly insulting language toward Japanese people in both the video itself and its title and thumbnail. His actions not only ruined the dining experience for other customers present at the scene, but also created collateral damage online. Video clips of him eating were uploaded to X and immediately blew up in Japan. People weren't just angry at him personally, they started projecting his behavior onto Chinese tourists in Japan as a whole, with many Japanese citizens commenting that Chinese tourists have a tendency to behave rudely, which means that his actions have inadvertently hurt his own community and further deteriorated the already strained relationship between Chinese tourists and Japanese locals. This is the story of Deng Xongfang, a mukbang influencer with over 4 million subscribers on Chinese TikTok and over 600,000 subscribers on Bilibili.com, China's version of YouTube. Deng started posting mukbang content in 2023 at the age of 23, and in just 3 years, he's amassed a giant following of over 4 million followers. This quick online success can largely be attributed to his barbaric, crude eating style, which is something you simply cannot avoid noticing, as well as the sheer amount of the food he consumes in a single meal. It's a lot. I mean, a lot of food. His signature eating method involves stacking a pile of food onto a stick and finishing it all in one go, or just shoving an entire chunk of food straight into his mouth, or even straight up slurping an entire plate clean. And my personal favorite has to be this one, the abyss mouth, where his mouth opens so wide it's like a black hole that just swallows everything in front of it. Because of this, many people are convinced that his name is pseudonym rather than a real name, because according to my Chinese friends, his name in Chinese characters means something like hurricane and crazy, which seems to allude at just how fast and how much he eats, like a crazy hurricane. Now, speaking of pseudonyms, we also need to talk about his girlfriend, Wu Banbao, who is also a huge mukbang streamer. Apparently Banbao means half full in Chinese, like she's never completely full. It's a pseudonym that perfectly sums up her whole vibe. No matter how much she eats, she's only half full and she always has extra stomach space left 24/7. This has led many people to joke that if the two of them ever have kids, their child would turn out to be the most gluttonous food monster in the world. Now, Wu has even more followers than him, and earlier this year, she gained quite a bit of international attention by participating in an international eating competition. And guess where the competition took place? Japan. Japan has a long-held tradition of hosting various forms of eating competitions, one of the most popular being this program, the Battle of Big Eaters. This year's competition was bigger and more ambitious than ever, with international contestants invited from a wider range of regions. Wu Banbao was one of them, representing China, and she did not disappoint. In the Osaka qualifiers, she powered through 21 bowls of udon noodles and advanced to the next round. Although she was eventually knocked out by even heavier eaters, the exposure from the compilation brought her more attention and traffic, which only made what happened afterward that much more infuriating. Not long after his girlfriend made her appearance on Japan's national TV, Deng Xongfang followed her to Japan in April of this year. As soon as he landed, he started filming. On the way to his first restaurant, he was already on the streets of Japan bragging that he was going to, quote, eat Japan dry, end quote, and make the Japanese bastards cry. He's also said he's been wanting to try Japanese buffets for a long time and asked his followers to recommend places. Then, just a day later, he uploaded this video titled, "The Eat Japan Dry Buffet episode you've been waiting for is here. Teaming up with my girl, we ate the Japanese bastards out of stock and scared them to tears." And the actual content of this video is quite routine. I mean, nothing new for those used to this content. It's him eating savagely, like he always does. However, this kind of barbaric eating style absolutely shocked the heck out of the Japanese waiters, as it definitely goes against Japanese dining culture. Deng himself is aware of that, because throughout the video, he made sure to capture the shocked faces of these Japanese waiters. That being said, no matter how off-putting this video may be, it pales in comparison to the next video, released just a few days later. In that video, Deng was dining in an all-you-can-eat seafood restaurant, and this time, unlike in the previous video, his behavior had an impact on other diners. By grabbing all the salmon and king crab onto his own plate and, quote, leaving not even a little bit for the Japanese, end quote, he immediately drew strange looks and judgment from the other customers, to the point that even the restaurant owner came out looking concerned. He not only brushed it off, but even low-key bragged about it, as if he were almost proud of the fact that he managed to annoy the local Japanese. Then he proceeded to eat with his signature stick technique, skewering all the salmon slices onto a stick and downing it all in one go, while muttering that this was to, quote, teach the Japanese bastards how to behave, end quote. One round of eating was of course not enough for him, so he got up and took more. Remember, his mission was to leave no food for others. Besides the seafood, the meat section was not spared either, as he swept all the beef off the shelves and onto his own plate, while muttering nonsensical Japanese words that he presumably poorly learned from anime. And as if all of this weren't irritating enough, he also poured the remaining sashimi slices onto the barbecue rack, essentially turning sashimi into barbecued salmon, a culinary crime that immediately drew disgust from a Japanese waiter, which Deng captured in his video and basically laughed at. Another consistent theme in his videos is his use of derogatory words to address Japanese people, calling them bastards. Now, I want to make one point here clear. The reason why people are so mad at his behavior in Japan is not necessarily his crude eating style, but rather his double standard, aka the fact that he behaves one way in China but another way in Japan. In China, he seems a lot more self-aware. He actually makes an effort not to bother the restaurant owner, and he also makes sure to not get in the way of other customers. For example, sometimes he likes to negotiate a capped flat price with the restaurant owner at the outset, allowing him to eat all he wants without ever having to pay more than the cap. But in cases where he eats so much that the restaurant would run at a loss, he would actually choose to pay per item instead, so as not to burden the restaurant. For example, one time he went to a Western cuisine restaurant where the owner had originally agreed to let him eat to his fill for 5,000 yuan. After devouring everything, the total cost far exceeded 5,000 yuan, so he paid the regular price, ensuring the restaurant could still make a profit. Plus, knowing that he eats more than the average person, he would let other customers eat first and go after them, so as not to cause any inconvenience. He also seems to abide by store rules for ordering and eating, never making things difficult for the staff. All of this shows that he is actually a pretty civilized and considerate guy who is mindful of his environment. Therefore, although his eating style seems a bit raw and the way he orders can be a little over the top, at the end of the day, as long as you're not bothering others, you do you. Plus, influencers sometimes have to act a little bit extra to stand out in the industry, and people understand that. So overall, in China, Deng has remained mostly controversy-free and well-liked. However, as soon as he landed in Japan, he became a completely different person, oblivious to his environment, disrespecting the local culture, and even deliberately causing trouble for others. All of this seems to suggest that racism might be at play, that Deng was exploiting the historical grievances between the two countries to gain more views. Which begs the question, what was the reaction from Chinese citizens? While anti-Japan sentiment in China is a real thing and some citizens have supported Deng's actions, there was also an overwhelming number of comments criticizing his behavior, saying he was tainting the image of Chinese people overseas. For example, the comment says, "This is straight up rude, disrespectful, and honestly embarrassing. Where's the basic respect? The waiters were being super polite, and you just know this video is going to get shared overseas to make Chinese people look bad. Fine, do whatever at home, but couldn't you at least tone it down when you're abroad?" Another comment says, "Embarrassing yourself all the way in another country, and yet you walk out like nothing happened. Why do Chinese students and expats in Japan have to pay for your ridiculous behavior?" Reading through these comments, one can feel the rage and desperations as relations between Chinese tourists and Japanese local residents have reached an all-time low over the past few years. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know that Japan is currently facing an over-tourism issue, considering that Chinese tourists make up a big chunk of the tourist population in Japan. And given the historically rocky relations between the two nations, it's no surprise that disputes involving Chinese tourists often become a source of online outrage. For example, a few years ago, there was an incident in an Osaka restaurant involving some Chinese tourists. What exactly happened remains unknown to this day. But what we do know is that the restaurant owner asked the Chinese tourists to leave due to their allegedly rude dining behavior. This time, with Deng's case, his own self-uploaded video is shameful proof of his bad manners. A Japanese citizen uploaded clips of Deng's rude eating episode to X, and it quickly went viral, even making it to the news on TV, leading many Japanese people to criticize Deng's behavior. Inevitably, people started projecting his behavior onto Chinese tourists in Japan as a whole. Incidents like these are why, over the years, some Japanese restaurants have explicitly forbidden Chinese tourists from entering, which is very unfortunate. When the actions of certain individuals taint the reputation of an entire community, everyone loses. Understandably, besides the Japanese locals, the group that criticizes Deng the most is other Chinese people currently living in Japan, as his actions have damaged their image and made life harder for them. Despite having caused such harm to his own community though, Deng has not apologized or even acknowledged any wrongdoing. Quite the contrary, he doubled down. 1 month after his first 2 Japan videos, he uploaded another video, this time accusing a Japanese restaurant of providing terrible food and poor customer service. Then, 2 months later, he uploaded yet another 2 videos of him eating in Japan, and in the titles and thumbnails, he was still using the same derogatory words to address Japanese people. Despite all of this, considering that his main content focuses on domestic Chinese restaurants, his popularity remains largely unaffected. However, though he managed to escape the Japanese controversies, the same can't be said for other controversies. Ever since his debut, there's always been suspicions that he fakes eating. I mean, just look at his physique. Dude is really fit. I mean, almost suspiciously fit, which is bizarre for a mukbang streamer who typically looks like this. Deng is not only slim, but also maintains a consistent six-pack. His girlfriend, Wu Banbao, eats almost the same amount of food that he does, yet weighs only 50 kilograms. This has led many people to suspect that their videos are scripted, and that most of the time they're just pretending to eat. Deng himself claims that the calories from all that food are burned off through exercise, and he often posts photos and videos of him working out. Yet, citizens aren't fully convinced. Some have pointed out that his weight before and after eating in the videos doesn't match the amount of food he supposedly ate. Some have even done the math. Given that he posts videos almost every 1 or 2 days, it would be impossible to burn off that many calories just through exercise alone without resorting to purging. Also, in one video, an eagle-eyed viewer spotted 22 takeout boxes on a receipt that he showed, suggesting that he may not have finished everything on site and may have packed some food to take away. But many viewers come to his defense, saying that plenty of people have witnessed him eating live on the streets, so there's a lot of witnesses who can attest to his real eating. If faking it seems impossible, some began to suspect whether he might be purging. Speaking of which, in June of this year, there were actually news reports that he had been purging after a binge-eating episode. But despite just how shady this all looks, most viewers don't seem to care as long as he appears to have eaten everything on screen. And he continues to be one of the most viewed mukbang influencers to this day, along with his girlfriend. My overall opinion is that I don't really care how a person eats their food. That's their own business. So Deng eating like a savage actually doesn't bother me. However, what does bother me is his double standard and deliberate manipulation of racist sentiment to gain views. But what's your opinion on this case? Leave a comment down below, and thanks for watching.